Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I'm your host, Paul O'Neid, and just a shout out to our sponsors. We are sponsored by X Factor Labs. For all of your third-party tested peptides, they're the only company that we trust. You can use code ONEED to save over there. We're also sponsored by Next Level Strength Gear, anything regarding straps, wraps, sleeves. They're the best in the business, highest quality, and they're coming to you at a reasonable price. Use code ONEED to save over there. We're also sponsored by Barefoot Shoes. Use code ONEED. And finally, TC Nutrition for all of your protein, aminos, pre-workout, best flavors in the game, honestly. And we're grateful to have them on board. Use code TCXONEED to save over there. And getting into the podcast, today we're joined by a friend of mine, Dr. Dom Shultz. Dom and I have been trying to link up for the podcast for a few times, but I keep going away or having to travel, and he's been gracious enough to reschedule. We finally got him on. He is the owner of Charge Health and Chiropractic. He's also a father, and he's a former collegiate football player. There's going to be a ton of conversations today because honestly, Dom and I started talking off camera, and I was like, no, we got to start the podcast. So just Dom, welcome, and happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. I've picked up a lot from you just over the last couple years and was really itching to, finally make this thing happen, man. So I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to get into some stuff today.
So why don't you start by giving people a little bit of a background? I mentioned you played college football, and then what's the journey been like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll go all the way back. I'm from a small town in Michigan, Port Huron, Michigan. You might be familiar if
I
you've
am
crossed that
familiar.
bridge a couple times, right? So a pretty small town, not a ton going on there. A lot of just unfortunate mediocrity that you can get stuck in. So that's kind of where I came from. Went to and committed to Northern Illinois to play football there. And then at the very last second, Jerry Kill was the head coach at the time, got the call up to Minnesota and just asked me to come along up there. So that's how I ended up being a preferred walk-on up at Minnesota. I had to grind, man. Those walk-on years teach you a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
You're always at the bottom of the totem pole whenever you come in as a freshman anyway, but especially as a walk-on. So tons of just mental resilience and armor that I had to build there that prepared me for a lot of things in life after that. So very grateful for my time there. The one thing, I won't get too far ahead of myself, but Dr. Mike was there, Mike T at the time, he was
Mm-hmm.
there. And man, I really wish I knew of Mike T. I was just an ignorant football player at the time. I would have loved to go and soak that guy's brain up, a lot earlier than now. But that was pretty cool to have that, tie in there. And then, after I graduated, had my first son. And then we went to Palmer College and Chiropractic before he was even 1 year old, man. So, just took
In Florida or in Iowa?
that was in Iowa.
Okay.
Yep. So that was about 8 hours away from my hometown. So another big challenge ahead. And I had my now wife with me at the time. We, stayed together and knew that we were gonna, make it through. So hammered out those 4 years. That's where I met Dylan. Played rugby there. And then as soon as I graduated, I had another hometown connection, another Port Huron guy here in Fort Wayne. That's where I'm at right now. He was also a big power lifter, very well accomplished in nationals, even junior nationals, did really well. So I started practicing under him. It was going pretty well, but I kind of quickly realized that it was the type of chiropractic that I didn't want to be. And I'm just, being honest, as far as just a big factory style, really quick visits, only manual therapy, very little, rehab and movement education. And that just wasn't my jam. I knew that I was leaving a lot on the table when, helping people. So, I started Charge Health and Chiropractic about 2.5 years ago. And it's been great ever since, man. We're really getting into just helping people long term, right? I think that's what a lot of people really want anyway. I deal with primarily Gen Pop. Definitely get some high school athletes in here, but a lot of people come to me after they tried the traditional route and they're just really upset with the pace of the results, man, and how discombobulated things can be, to put it nicely. So yeah, we do a nice job of just wrapping it all up for them. Do a nice job getting them relief with my hands. I really do believe that I'm an elite level adjuster, which isn't easy to do. So I take a lot of pride in my hands-on skills, but that's just one subset of getting better, right? So it's
Absolutely.
yeah, moving to that performance side and do a lot of hybrid, training, personal training and rehab. And yeah, man, it's going really well. Really grateful.
That's awesome, dude. There's a lot to pull from that. The first thing I want to touch on is you mentioned you were a preferred walk on and the mental fortitude that you developed through that process. I'm a big believer that playing sports, whether you're competing at a high level or just pushing yourself in some capacity, there's so much to learn from sport or fitness, especially
Absolutely.
at a young age. But I don't think that in the moment we're actually aware of the lessons that we're learning. Were you conscious of how hard it was, or was it just something that you knew you had to do to get to where you want to go?
Um, a little bit of both, to be honest. I knew that maybe not my like first 2 years, right? It was kind of just one of those, and I never took the approach of like feeling sorry for myself, but I knew that it was a big hill to climb. So there's moments of like, oh man, this is like, is this really worth it, right? Because again, I was originally going to go to a Mac school. All my buddies are going to go to Mac school, so I was like, I was going to either play with them or play against them. So I gave up a lot to do that. So there was definitely times of like, man, what am I really doing here? Is this really worth it? But my mom raised a very just a household where like we don't quit at anything, right? There's just we
Mm,
work hard, and there's zero quit to anything that we do. So that was always really with me, that no matter what, I'm going to prove maybe some of the naysayers back in my hometown wrong, or I'm going to prove even some of the coaches that would like look down on me as a walk on, and that's an unfortunate part or reality of college
yeah.
football, is that there's a lot of pride there, right? Between players, but mostly coaches too, where they have their mind set up about the guys and what they think you're capable of. And that was always a big driver for me to prove those guys wrong, that I could do the things that they put me in a box and said I couldn't. These weren't my strong suits, right? So I use that as fuel quite a bit to just work my ass off. Yeah. But yeah, towards the end, I was always a relatively self-aware guy, and I could pick up and say like, man, okay, my mindset is changing around some hard things, and I'm sure this is going to pay off. So towards the end, I could pick up a little bit on like, hey, this is like I said, going to be some nice armor for me, later down the road.
Yeah. I like the use of the term armor. It's a great visual for me, especially like, man, like I have a tattoo of armor on my forearm. Like I
Right.
get it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as business owners, learning that lesson early on that like, hey, your back's against the wall. What are you going to do? Because if you own your own business, Dom, if you decided tomorrow that you didn't want to show up, guess what? Your family goes hungry.
Dude.
So
That's simple.
you have no choice. You have to show up. Your back's against the wall every day. But you learn that through your experiences in sport, that the harder you work, the more results are going to come from it. And I think people get I'm going to just frame it this way.
Sure.
People get really focused on motivations, and they'll say, if you're not internally motivated, you're doing it wrong. And I honestly fell into that trap. I was like, hey, if you're not motivated for the process, and you're not entrenched in it, you're probably not going to be successful long term. But the longer I'm in this game, I think we all want it, right? We all have some sort of internal motivation,
Yeah.
but that's not always going to get you out of bed. So I'll
Sure.
take whatever motivation I have. If it's proving somebody wrong, or, sticking it to the coaches, or going after a trophy, if that's what gets me out of bed to pursue my passion, like I'll take that every day. So I think it's cool that you went from, all right, I'm just going to take these external motivators. And then over time, you develop this internal motivation that you're more conscious of, that you've brought now into your business. Because I'm sure there's an element of pride when you walk into your office and you see Charge behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's got to feel
Absolutely.
good.
Oh, it feels great, man. It feels great. Yeah, especially knowing kind of where you came from, and um, just yeah, that process of like, I like the back against the wall, because yeah, I mean, I was 12 hours away out there, almost completely alone, and it's just there's nothing but you, man, right? And there's so many other instances where, especially working with patients, if we break it down on a patient level, like, hey, I'm going to be here to guide you, I'm going to be here to help you, I'm going to be here to give you that relief. But at the end of the day, like, all of these things to some degree are going to fall back on you being able to take action on something that you know you
Mhm.
need to clean up and we need to change. So yeah, there's a lot of tie in there, with kind of using the external stuff initially and then realizing ultimately that a lot of this stuff is going to have to come from the inside, and being okay with like not having the juice one day or for a
Yeah.
season of life, right? There's going to be times where like, man, I'm just in the shitter, and like, guess what? I'm a human, right? Like this is going to happen, and um, I'm going to have to come out of that. But yeah, I think the more conscious choices you make to like lean into the hard stuff, it gives you more examples that I know how to pull myself out of that.
Yeah. Self-efficacy has been a conversation repeated on the podcast, just the confidence in your ability to win.
No doubt.
And if you're able to stack wins early on, however you're motivated to stack those wins, you know that, okay, I can do this, right? And that, we know that if we set goals, like if you said to today, Paul, I'm going to open 7 franchises, I'd be like, that's a pretty big goal. Like, do I think you could do it? Yes. But how far outside of your comfort zone is that?
Right.
Whereas if you said, I want to open 1 more location, yeah, that's a little bit outside your comfort zone. It's within the realm of possibility in the near future. It becomes a little bit more easy to digest and you'll have more confidence to do it. And I think being able to set that up for our clients to say, like, okay, I'm going to challenge you, but I'm going to challenge you in a way where I think you can win.
Yeah.
And then that challenge becomes a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And that brings me into the next question of like, I find a lot of business owners, they start out in a traditional model, whether it be with chiropractic of that like snap, crackle, pop, see you later, or whether it be in personal training, I'm going to see you for an hour and leave, or even with online coaching where it's like, I'm going to write you a program, you're going to follow it, and then I'm just going to update it periodically. And then they realize, hey, there's a gap here. I can serve people to a higher level. One of the things that I'm finding very interesting about the landscape of health and fitness is more and more people are participating, which means that they're being exposed to both new models, old models, good coaching, good therapy, bad therapy. And so you mentioned that the primary audience that you're catering to now is people who have had past experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that more and more with the online coaching space. I very rarely get an inquiry from a client who's never worked with a coach.
Right.
I usually get the fucked up people
Yeah.
who've been fucked up by somebody else or who have had terrible experiences with somebody else. That brings with it a few bonuses, right? You're getting a more educated client. And whether that education is good or bad, let's just say they have more information.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say maybe not educated, but more things to pull from.
Right. So that's a bonus, but it also comes with it that they have these beliefs that are maybe deeply ingrained. And if you're going to propose an alternate model that is so far off to the left of where they're used to, what's the process that you guys go through at Charge to kind of develop that relationship with the patient, create trust and buy-in so that they actually see that, okay, this is a better way of doing things?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a great question. Immediately, and I've always taken the stance, even if somebody did something just idiotic, right? They come or they get some sort of diagnosis that's way far left, or, just whatever it is. Like, I think it's immediate, really important to not talk down on that person or where they came from, right? Don't make that experience negative, right? Because then immediately I think you position yourself as maybe a know-it-all or something like that. So, okay, we'll acknowledge that. I appreciate, their line of thinking here, this or that, but then you show them what else can make sense. So usually, I mean, I just like anything, assessment is huge, right? So you have to kind of walk them through a proper assessment and show them that, where their glaring limitations are. But I'm kind of a big, I'm become more of a biomechanics nerd over time, and being able to kind of paint the story from the ground up and start to, help them realize why they're having that lateral hip bursitis, or, whatever it may be, starting all the way down at the foot. We see the big collapse or whatever that is. And then you just start to help them realize that, like, oh wow, I do that, or this is something that I do notice, and that would make sense, right? So I think helping them just paint a little bit better of a story of like how they got to where they are based on some of their prior history and their injuries, I think is a big piece of that. And then getting them the big burst of relief with the manual therapy or any other, technology that we might use, and then immediately go and do some sort of mobility or, loaded drill or something where we, kind of solidify those changes that I was looking to make with the hands. And
Mhm.
they get all of that kind of in one visit, or in maybe just that first block of treatment with me, and then they're like, holy shit, I've never had anybody talk to me like this. I've never had anybody treat me like this with their hands, and I've never had anybody put a bow on it and have some exercises at the end. And just that sensation that they get after that that's all the buy-in that they need.
Yeah, I think it comes down to time. Like you spend the time with a person, you show them that you actually care and you want to explain to them exactly what's happening, not treat them like an idiot.
And
I think people really appreciate that. And I love what you said about validating their past experience. Because obviously they wouldn't have continued to go to that person if it didn't make some sort of positive change.
oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
So being able to validate that experience and say, hey, you did have some success, but obviously it wasn't success that's going to last. Here's the approach that we take. Here's your specific situation. And then, you know, get them that easy win right off the bat and build on it from there. Um, I find it really interesting when looking at the traditional model of most things versus the more, we'll call it like an exercise focused or movement focused model. That traditional model caters to a specific type of individual that wants to have the treatment done to them.
Yes.
When you get in a situation where you realize that the model where you are participating in the treatment and you have to take autonomy and agency over that process is going to yield the best results. Do you ever find that there's friction on the part of the client to actually participate? Or do you think that your assessment, your quick wins does the job of getting that buy-in?
It's definitely both, man. I mean, there's still, unfortunately, a decent amount of people that just kind of come in with that lay on the table and fix me mentality, and so a lot of their just daily routines are so deeply entrenched, or they believe that they're so far gone that it's just not worth the effort to make any bigger changes. There's definitely people like that, and you just read the room and you try to do your best in getting them the relief that they can, and then slowly, very slowly, asking them to do more. But again, I feel like I do a really nice job. Like a lot of my reviews and just things that people say are like rapport building, right? And being able to connect with somebody. So if you can get that piece down, you can start to be a little honest with them and say, hey, like, listen, this is something that keeps coming in, man. Like we've done this now, 5, 6, 7 times. Like let's be honest about this situation, and it's going to keep coming back until you do this, right? So I think again, yeah, just building that relationship is really important. But um, I think I do a nice job, or I've had success anyway, with giving people, like, I'm a huge fan of isometrics, and I wanted to talk to you
Mm,
about some isos too, because I
sure.
wanted to know a little bit more of your experience with isos, and how you use them and leverage them coming out of your knee injury. But that's a really easy one to start to ask people to do, and the results are usually pretty quick, or
Huge.
the analgesic effect is like awesome. So you're like, oh shit, okay, so this is something that I'm doing. I don't need any equipment really to
Thing.
do it, depending on where you are, and it's active. All right, well, now I can start to maybe digest the thought of doing more, because this active thing that I'm doing works so well and it's so easy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to pull from that because I think the thing that I would have the question for you is like, how often do you think people fall into the trap of trying to educate themselves way more than they need to be rather than just learning how to talk to people?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
it's
that drives me nuts. I see it a lot in the online coaching space where people will like seek out all these certifications or advanced strategies,
sure.
but they have no idea how to actually listen to somebody. And they just hear information for the purpose of responding rather than actually listening to somebody and taking in that information and then giving it back to them in the way that they need to. And, it sounds like that's a very key part of your approach, which I think is fantastic. Um, what we were talking about before we started, I think is a great segue to this because, you get into a situation where you start a business. You have 3 children.
Yes, sir.
You're 32 years old. That is a heavy, I don't want to use the word burden because I
Yeah,
know that, you love your life. Right. And I
absolutely.
think burden has a really negative connotation, but
Sure.
you have a really heavy backpack that you carry around every day.
Yeah.
Do you find it, lonely?
I do actually, and I was just texting a buddy this morning. He had sent me a podcast of a group of guys that were like just having dinner together and just kind of chopping it up, and asking some of the deeper, manly type questions. And yeah, man, you do. I mean, I think everybody, especially now with social media and shit like that, like everybody just lives in their own little echo chamber, and your problems can become, just really inflated if you let them, and if you don't have any ability to zoom out. But I do, yeah, I do feel like I'm kind of solving problems that other of my peers that I love and respect haven't encountered quite yet, right? And I've just had to lean on different mentors and different coaches to help me with some of that. I have an amazing wife. My wife Alexis is just a ridiculous support system. Her ability to kind of almost foresee, I mentioned kind of those seasons where, hey man, I might be in the shitter, or like I'm just not as sharp as I really want to be. I think that's a sign of a good spouse, is being able to foresee some of that coming,
Absolutely.
and then pick up some of that slack. So she does an amazing job of that. So I think that's super helpful. So in the sense, like, do I feel lonely? No, because I mean, true, we actually, me and my wife have been together since 2010, man. I mean, we were like
That's
high school,
amazing.
yeah, high school sweethearts, like did the whole thing. So we have just grinded the hell out of life together. So that partnership definitely gives me a sense of comfort. But yeah, I do feel like there's to some degree I'm kind of in my own lane, if you will, and do have to do a lot of just figuring it out on the fly, which I think that's a strong suit of mine. I've never been a huge kind of like sit down, read a bunch of books, like all this long-term retention, things like that. Like I just perform really well on the fly, a really
Me
good
too.
pattern recognizer, and just know how to put your freaking head down and get it done too at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have this conversation with people regularly, and it's something that I come in contact with because I'm also somebody who solves problems for others. And so the majority of the conversations that I have, I'm in that like big brother mentor role, and I
Sure.
don't really have anyone in my life who's on the same level as me or above me.
Right.
So I don't really have many mentors, so to speak. I have people who I'll reach out to for help in certain situations or, whatever it might be. I've got Cav, I've got Kane, and what I've come to realize is that like, one of the things that I take away from the mastermind group that we met through is there are a lot of other people who are trying to do the same things as me, but I do need to do a better job of reaching out to those people and bouncing ideas off of them.
Definitely.
But I've found even then, I'm still in a situation where I'm further along. So I'm the one giving advice.
Yeah.
And I mean, you as a father of 3, that's like, none of us have 3 kids. Like I don't have any kids. I have 3 dogs, not the same.
Sure.
Although I refuse to be one of those guys who has dogs, like, oh yeah, my dogs are my kids.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah. Please don't say that. Again, don't say that.
I can put my dogs in a crate if I want to leave them
That's
alone. You
right.
can't do that with your kids.
That's the one distinct difference that makes it very, very different.
Yeah. So I think, but the reason I want to bring that up is that I think it's important for people to hear about. I think it's important for us to have these conversations so that people know that it's normal to feel this way
Yeah.
and that staying in your lane doesn't have to be a negative thing, right? Like think about how many discoveries you've had on your own through
Yeah.
trial and error that have led to phenomenal opportunities for growth that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if you just tried to mimic someone else's process.
Yeah, that's I love that you highlight that, because I was maybe having a discussion with a patient the other day about how I was doing something differently now than what it was. I can't necessarily remember the example, but yeah, it was. I had this quick little flashback of like all my thoughts put together over the course of a couple years. And I'm like, holy shit, man! Like just that massive difference came from number one, me giving myself the freedom to try things, right? Like I was
Mhm.
listening to a podcast a while ago. It was David Gray talking with another guy. I think they were talking about tendon healing or something. And obviously, there's principles and guidelines and things that we have to
Of
stay
course.
within, right? I
Yep.
mean, there's always going to be those, but so much of it is just like fucking try it, man. Try it and see if it works, right? Like test it, record it, see what really works, and kind of run a bit of an experiment here. So I kind of melt all that down to, and you can do that in a manual therapy world too, and just see how people respond. And yeah, I think my evolution and progression came from the giving myself the freedom to try. Again, doing a lot of pattern recognizing, and yeah, just really understanding that we don't have all the answers, right? And you're never going to, right? And that there is no true
There's no rules.
believer in like the optimal thing. I mean, yes, there's better ways to do things always, but I don't think that there's an optimal way, because everybody's so fucking different that like you have to be able to be kind of like us, problem solvers on the fly.
If there was one word that I could like actively lobby against, it would be optimal, because I think
Yes, literally.
it gets so conflated. Like
Oh,
people will say, "Oh, this is the optimal way to do things." I'm like, "No, that's the perfect way to do things. What's optimal is what actually works in real life."
yes,
So,
yes,
asking someone to train 5 times a day, do their rehab 5 times a day, that might be optimal. That might be perfect, right? If they say, "Hey, to heal a tendon, you need high frequency exposure." If that person has 3 kids and runs their own business, they don't have 5 times a day to do 30 minutes of exercise.
right,
They just don't.
absolutely,
So what's optimal might be 2 times.
yeah,
And yeah, that I could definitely go on a tangent about that.
sure,
But I also love that you highlighted that your wife is a huge support system for you. I heard a quote the other day that the best decision you ever make in business is who you choose as your partner.
no doubt,
I could not agree more about that. I have the pleasure of working with my wife. She's a co-owner of the company, and she is. I say she's my superpower, because where I fall short, she picks up the slack. She's always there to let me know when I'm being a dickhead, um, and she's always there to let me know that I need to back off.
yeah,
We talked about, I just got back from my honeymoon, and take out the fact that she was okay with delaying our honeymoon for a year because I
yeah,
decided to explode my kneecaps. Um, but she was the first one to say, "Hey, you need to take time away from work. You need to not be on your phone." And when we're away, she's taking all the pictures, because she
yeah,
knows that if I pull out my phone, I'm going to work on it.
gonna respond, yeah, yeah,
And and so, like, even just little things like that, your partner is like, if I can impress upon anyone from this talk, like, choose the right partner, because it will make or break you in the long
yeah.
term.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sitting behind our front desk right now at the office, and she's usually here. She's a co-owner as well. And initially, a lot of people were like, "Oh man, you work with your wife?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah." Like, it's like I wouldn't like. This is the.
It's the best.
It's awesome, right? Like, I'm sorry that you can't communicate with your wife. Like, I don't know what to tell you there, but
Sorry, your marriage sucks, man.
yeah, right. I don't know what that means, but no, yeah, you're 100% right. And again, I said it before, but he has a really nice, natural, like just knack at knowing when I'm on my way up, and like how to kind of step away and just be super supportive. And then when I need to take a seat to things, it's just a very natural like slide in and out. So yeah, incredibly grateful for her, man.
So let's talk a little bit about running the business, because I think you're one of the things that I think is really cool is that your business operates a lot differently than most chiropractic clinics. You
For
obviously
sure.
do the hands-on manual therapy. You're ascribed to, I would call it like the more new school exercise focused therapy as well, where you get your clients moving and lifting weights.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. You also mentioned that there's a personal training component to your business. And I also know that you have an online component to your business. Can you just give people a bit of a rundown of like maybe a 30,000-foot view of kind of the runway you take a client through or the different verticals that you have?
Yeah, yeah. So, how I've been doing it maybe for the last year or so is I kind of, because again, I will be very transparent with somebody at the first visit that, unless it's a super quick thing that like, hey, this a couple visits is going to get you to where you need to be. You're already well on your way. You're crushing your exercise. You're on a great program. Sweet, right? It can be very knick-knacky there, right? No problem. But majority of people need to some degree, I would say, a half of years worth of care, right? I think there's
Mm.
6 months of prime opportunity to just completely change where you started from and just the trajectory that you're going to be on after, right? So I work in a 12-week block initially. Maybe for the first 3 weeks, it's just relief based stuff. I know you're familiar with PEMF too, right? Do you
Yep.
use some of that for your healing? So
I did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the first 3 weeks, or first 3 sessions, we'll do hands-on stuff plus PEMF on the back end, which is just a really nice little cherry on top. And then I will get them onto my online platform pretty much right away, so I can start to get some more information from them and start to spice in, little mobility drills, co-contraction drills, isometrics, stretches, whatever they need as quickly as we can. So I like to get them integrated to the online component as fast as I can, because then we start to drop the rehab type stuff. And then with somewhere in that last, let's say, 8 weeks or so, it starts to blend into training. And I do my very best for that to blend to be super seamless, where they don't even really know when the rehab stopped and when the training begun, right? Like it should be something that like, okay, I can tell this is getting harder. But now I just feel like I'm working out, which is, I think that's a very important aspect of rehab, because I think mentally, if they know that, I'm basically just training at this point, they immediately over become, or they have this boost of confidence that I can do these things that I didn't, first do or handle. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, after that,
I
oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Finish up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, after that first kind of burst of 12-week care, then I usually write them another program for like another 12 weeks. And if they feel really confident to kind of hit that by themselves, and we just remotely check in through the app, we can do that. If they really like the more of the accountability and the contact points. And something I want to talk about real quick too, just a little side tangent that I feel that you had made mention of, and this is where actually kind of why I leaned a little bit more into the online side. It might have been one of the mastermind meetings that like, okay, if we talk about a doctor versus a coach, like who actually has the most opportunities to positively impact that person.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh shit! I mean, that was so true, because doctors, you check in once a quarter, if that, right?
Hmm.
And coach, or it's weekly, if not multiple times a week. So that was like, oh man, this is where I can really, really help somebody faster than they're used to, especially in a non-traditional chiro model. Is I can really have a lot of contact points with somebody if I put that coach hat on earlier in the process.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that because you have this. Here's the barrier that you're going to run into ultimately is that if you are the one with all the skills, you have to be the one that does all the work.
Man,
And
no
so
doubt.
you eventually become a bottleneck to your own growth because you can only handle so many people within a certain framework.
100%.
So if you can bring some of that time off your plate by transitioning people online quicker, you keep them within your scope of influence.
For sure.
Because truly the thing that you can do that no one else can't is the manual stuff. You could teach someone how to program. You could teach someone how to review videos. You could teach someone how to be on the floor with a client. But you can't necessarily, number one, it would be illegal. But you can't teach someone to put their hands on somebody.
Right.
So if you do the things that you are the expert at, and then transition them online where you can handle them, or you have a model where you have maybe a kinesiologist or a higher level trainer that can do the exercise selection and stuff like that. To me, that's like the progression of the model. But what you also showcased within the way that you described your business was that it's continuing to iterate. And I think that is a really key point in any business, is that you cannot be stagnant. You always have to be searching for better ways to serve you. And you cannot be tied to a model. Because if you're tied to a model, eventually the needs of your clients will change.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, like I used to get clients who'd never had a coach because I started online coaching in 2009.
Okay.
That wasn't a thing.
Right. Right.
So people were coming to me never having been coached. Now, when they come in having been coached, there's a different dynamic that needs to be developed. So my systems need to change. My model needs to change. And being open to the feedback that the clients are giving you. Ultimately, they're the ones paying you. So they're the ones whose impact or whose insights are the most valuable.
Right.
You continue to change and iterate. But are you running into that situation? Because it sounds like it's a very high touch model that you're running. You have to be either charging out the ass for it, or you have to be looking for ways to reduce the amount of time, because that's all we have, right? We have
Yeah.
cost per hour, or we have reducing the number of hours and decreasing the cost. Like that's the only two levers that we can really play with.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I do have one coach that is working with me on the back end of things. So,
Awesome.
doing check-ins, doing programming, creating forms, gathering, information and data stuff. So that helps me quite a bit. Initially, I'm definitely still in that mode of trying to find my own personal threshold, and this can go back to the conversation about the kids too, right? Is like,
Yeah,
okay, hey, how far do I really want to push this? What number collected per month is really worth it, is really going to actually change my life or change how I operate in the type of freedom that I have to be the father and the husband that I want to be. So I think finding that threshold still might be a moving mark at some point, and like you said, that might change too, as things progress. But yeah, I'm definitely running into that issue, especially with a lot of these, longer visits. I mean, that takes up a lot of time on the schedule itself, right? So the ability to onboard new patients, the ability to just do some of the more quicker, standard, hands-on type visits definitely become tighter. And to be just fully transparent, those are the ones that actually make me the most money, right? Because if I'm
of
a
course.
or if I'm a rehab chiro, like I kind of stay competitive to some degree at an hourly rate, doing rehab. So I can't just fill my schedule with that, because it is a money loss at that point. So yeah, that was something that Cav was helping me with, is finding that threshold. But you're completely right that trying to get and grow that side of the business on the online side is definitely the way to go. And I really enjoy the hands-on stuff. Actually, I do. I enjoy that. Just and I don't take this the wrong way, but almost like the intimacy of the visit itself,
Yeah, of
right? Like
course. Yeah,
there's so much that people have to overcome to let me in and to give me trust, right? I mean, so the amount of things that people like offload in that room is incredible
I'm
sometimes, right?
sure.
And some of the things that I see. So I am extremely honored and grateful that people trust me so much to do that. And I enjoy connecting with humans that way. So I like to lean into that. And I'm at a point where I probably need to bring on another guy to help me in the gym. I just really wanted to be dialed with some of my other processes before I brought another person in location.
I think it's like the care and the passion that you have for what you do comes through in the way that you're speaking about it, because and that's something that I greatly respect about you. But you bring up a really important point. It's like, what's my threshold? And I had this conversation with a coach yesterday. She was falling into the trap of comparing.
Yeah.
And she said, I always feel like I should be doing more. And I said, cool, that's probably a good thing, right? It means you're highly motivated. But what does more mean? To what end is the more going towards? Like, when is more enough? And I asked her, I said, why do you feel like you should be doing more? And her response was very honest. It was because I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I have enough value. And I think that, again, that can be a great motivator, but it can also be something on the back end that eats away at you.
Absolutely.
And it can have you push those thresholds too far, burn out, all these things that we hear about. I don't care how passionate you are about your job. If you have no time in your day to do things for yourself or be with your family, you will burn out. You
For
will
sure.
feel that pressure and it will crumble you. Now, when you think about, and you may not have an answer for this, but I'll ask it anyway.
Yeah.
What is enough for you? Is enough a number of clients? Is it like a top line revenue number? Is it a take home revenue number? Like, what does enough look like for you? Do you miss? I'm just going to continue to talk, but like,
Yes. Okay.
do you want to have 20 charges across the country? Or do you just want to have one that makes you a great profit, allows you to live a life that you're comfortable with? Like, I think about this a lot because, I have multiple revenue verticals. I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I have an education site. Do I have the ability to leverage these revenue verticals and make multiple millions of dollars a year? Yeah, absolutely. I do. Do I want to do that? Fuck no.
Right.
Because I don't want the headaches that come along with that. I want to be able to leave for 2 weeks and go to Europe, right? I want to be able to, fuck, man, I fell asleep yesterday for 2 hours on the couch because the time change fucked me. If I did that and I was like a multi-million-dollar revenue guy, my entire week would have been fucked. I would have missed meetings. It would have ruined my entire day, ruined my week.
For sure.
I just got up and I got back to work. Like, these are things that I understand that there's trade-offs. So for you, like, how does that conversation go in your head when you're like, I can be doing more? Do I need to be doing more? What does more mean? How do I assign the objective measures to what more actually is?
Yeah, what a fantastic question. And it's definitely a self conversation that's running pretty frequently in my head. Because again, being surrounded by high performance like yourself or other people in the group, man, you're like, holy shit, yeah, there's always levels to it, right? But you can see what's possible and see where you're at and like, hey, okay, I want that, right? I see that, I like that, I like the thought of making an extra, you know, 200K a year, whatever it might be. But yeah, I remember listening to another podcast about finances and money, and like he had broken down basically that like the lifestyle changes between $60,000 a year, or let's say even like $40,000 a year and $100,000 a year are massive, right? Like from
Of
someone with
course.
a very normal job to six figures, like holy shit, okay, this feels way more free. Okay, now we go 100K to 250K. Okay, yeah, I can do more. I can take an extra vacation or two, maybe work 4 days a week instead of five. But what's that gap between 250 and 500 look like? 500 to a million, like that. I think the differences start to like compress a little bit, where there's not that much change in what you actually feel, what you're actually capable of, in comparison to what you said, the stress or the responsibility that it takes to maintain those type of figures. So that's definitely something that I'm still chewing on. I mean, I think I do still work 5 days a week, half day on Friday. I think if I could get to the point where I'm very comfortably making what I'm making at 4 days a week, I can do 3 to 4 vacations a year. I do have Recharge as well. That's a recovery based business, so that's where I do have another physical therapist over there, sauna, cold plunge, Normatec, dolphins, assisted stretching, and that is a more to me anyway. It's less hands on. It's way less hands on than what I do. So I think that's a more copy and pastable
Yep.
business model than what I'm currently doing. So I do have some aspirations in growing that and maybe having somewhere between, yeah, you mentioned five to seven different recharges across the Midwest. I think would be really cool. But yeah, that's a great question, and I really don't have an answer. But I think objectively, where I'm at numbers wise per year, if I stayed here, I would be a very happy man. But I do, yes, you always want to make a little bit more. But from where I came from, man, we're in a really nice spot.
That's essentially how I feel as well. It's like, if I just continue to make the money that I'm making now, would I be okay? I'm like, yeah, I'd be totally
Yeah.
fine.
And you have to
Um,
be like okay with like saying that to yourself too, right? Again, like high performance like us, it's like who, number one, nobody even knows what you're bringing in, but who cares, man? I mean, fuck, you just went on a sick, like
yeah,
lifetime long, like vacation for 2 weeks.
yeah.
Like that's if you can do that, then fuck anything else, man.
One of the things that's helped me the most with this whole conversation has been assigning objective measures to these things, because I think we get stuck aiming at a target that we don't necessarily know exists.
For
So
sure.
people will say, I want to scale. I'm like, cool. What does that mean? Scale to what? What number? What's your number? And they can't give me a number. And so you end up just on this hamster wheel with no target, like no mountaintops. You're just climbing a mountain to infinity.
Sure.
That's a really easy way to just feel unfulfilled. So one of the things that I did was like, okay, at what point will I feel successful?
Yeah.
And I came back to, if I can do what I want, when I want, with who I want, where I want,
Yeah.
I will be successful.
For sure.
I think I'm already there.
Yeah.
Cool. So if I'm successful, I have no reason to feel less than,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then it comes down to, all right, what's the lifestyle that I want to live? Do I need to be driving $150,000 vehicle? Do I need, and listen, I went from driving a $60,000 truck. Now I drive a $100,000 truck. I can tell you there's no fucking difference.
For sure.
I have cooled seats.
Right.
Sweet.
Right.
Who
Right.
cares? But I'll tell you right now, my $60,000 truck looked a lot cooler than my $100,000 truck, because
Really?
I lifted it, I put rims on it, whatever. But so it's like, okay, like you said, does the income lead to better quality of life? In a lot of instances, it doesn't. Now, things change.
For sure.
We want to start a family. That's something that's very, very important for us. And the conversation is around, all right, well, we make X amount per month cumulatively. We share our finances. Okay. If Olivia has to half her income
Yeah.
so that she can be a mom, how do I pick up the slack of that income
Yeah.
without adding more time to my plate? Now I have a new problem to solve, but it's also an objective problem to solve.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that. I think that's where the objective can come in. If I could push back slightly to the other point of being objective is, I mean, especially for somebody that has accomplished as much as you have, right? Like, has there been moments where, okay, hey, I medaled, or I hit a PR. This is something that I really wanted to do for myself, and then you get done. And I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, especially competing on stage and stuff. And there's just that fucking anticlimactic, like, well, fuck, okay, I did it, I got it, I touched that, but like, what now, right? Just that fucking void after you actually, hit that objective measure. So I think leading with that can also be something to be mindful of. Not to say that it isn't, like you said, an awesome external motivator, but I think there's maybe a touch of emptiness behind some numbers, if you will, if you didn't actually along the way at least find and extrapolate some things that helped you understand you better.
That is the perfect pushback, because the number or the end goal has to be attached to an internal motivator.
Awesome.
So like that is the key. So if you're pushing for a goal and you hit it and then you feel empty, which I've done, that means that the goal wasn't actually in alignment with you.
Yeah.
So that, like, I can think back to, I totaled 1,960 pounds. I had a squat at the time. I was ranked top 10 in the world, or top 10 all time. So of anyone who's ever competed in powerlifting ever, I was in the top 10 in 2 different weight classes.
Holy shit.
I didn't fucking care. I was
Yeah.
like, nope, it's not good enough. And the reason was I was chasing this thing for external validation. It had nothing to do with my internal drive to reach these goals. But the cool thing about having an objective measure that's actually aligned with you and who you are comes down to, when I hit that goal, it shows me what's possible. And then the next goal becomes very clear.
Yeah.
And so the way I frame my life, it might be a little bit philosophical for people, but I
Okay.
wake up every day and I push a rock up a hill. And every day when I go to bed, the rock rolls back down to the bottom of the hill. And I just keep pushing that rock up the hill every day. And it's the same hill. And I'm totally okay with it because I know that there's purpose in the reason I'm pushing that rock up a hill.
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, like I could do this forever. And if I could do this forever and be fulfilled and feel successful because I can do what I want, where I want, when I want, with who I want, what else do I need?
Yeah. Yeah.
And people might say, oh, you're being complacent. But dude, this is my life. And if I want to train 16 times a week, fuck, I'm going to do that. I
Yeah.
love training.
Yeah.
If I wanted to build a business where I had a CFO, I had a CEO, I had a this, I had a that. I actually told myself early on in my business, I think you'll laugh at this. I said, the moment I have to hire an executive assistant, I've gone too far.
Wow. Okay. When did you fucking blow past that need?
About a year ago, I hired an assistant.
Okay.
Now I have two. But the reason I hired the assistant wasn't so that I could do more business. It was so I could do the same amount of business
Yeah.
in less time and actually have more time for my life.
Love it, man. I love it.
And I
Absolutely love
think that's where people miss the mark.
it.
Like
Yeah.
having a business should give you freedom. Like you didn't quit the traditional model so that you could work more hours. You did it so you could help more people. But why do we help people? Because it makes us feel good.
Yep.
Well, how do we use that good feeling to actually, pour into our spouses, pour into our families, pour into our children, pour into the people that we want to serve in our communities? Like, are we doing volunteer work? Are we helping out those people who might not be able to afford our services in some capacity? Right? I always think about these things of like, what more can I be doing, maybe in a more benevolent sense?
Sure.
Like, if I actually want to help people, am I really helping people if I'm charging them $1,000 a month or whatever?
Right. Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and that's been an issue with me with the mentorship. It's like, okay, the mentorship costs $7,500. The only reason I'm comfortable charging that much money is because I know that I can make people more money than that.
Right.
So it always comes back. I love these conversations because truthfully, there are no rules. You mentioned it earlier in this conversation. You said, there are certain guidelines that you have to attend to, but there's no rules.
Absolutely not.
And what works for you, what might not work for somebody else. And you mentioned like, you're surrounded by high achievers and you look at and I'm kind of rambling at this point, but
Okay.
you look at the high achievers and you say, wow, that's what's possible. But then you also said, maybe I don't want that.
And as long as you give, like, as long as you're okay, and I think you had mentioned like, you said complacency. Like, I think that might even have like this negative connotation to it as well. Like, what's wrong with being okay with like where you're at, right? Like, everybody, a large majority of your friends group are like carrying around a strong, sense of anxiety because they're not happy, right? So if you
Mhm.
actually a spot where you feel like, yo, I could chill here and I could be happy here and I could like, die here to some degree, like you kind of made it, man. Like that's you should feel very, not maybe not proud, but very okay with like being at a spot where like I can live here. And that's something I've had to um yeah, kind of just quell a little bit too. And I think that ties back into like just that walk on mentality is I always had to
Yep.
prove, I always had to feel like I wasn't good enough just all the time. And I had to eventually get to the point where like, okay, I realized that like, wow, I'm a lot of people's kind of go to. I'm really helped a lot of people come out of a big hole that they were in. um, and you have to give yourself some flowers sometimes, man, and be okay with just the steadiness of life, and try to live there a little bit.
What makes you feel most proud?
Oh man, that's a great question. um I think in my ability to just eat shit and move forward. To be to be honest, like there's so many people that get bogged down by the the shitty things that life incurs, and they live there for too long. And I have a nice knack of not taking myself too seriously, and being able to zoom out and see how small. You had mentioned, how small traveling can make you feel, like how small I think I really am in the grand scheme of things, and just allowing that to humble me. So more so, I think I'm proud of my mental ability to keep myself there, right? And
Mhm.
obviously, I'm very proud of the father that I am and the husband that I am, but I think of my ability to wrap all of my life lessons and experiences into a place mentally where I can, like I said, just eat shit, let it roll off, and continue to press forward.
That's a great thing to feel proud of. It's a very important skill to have as a business owner because you're going to eat a lot of shit.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah,
What's
yeah.
what's
Go
been
ahead.
one of the biggest challenges that you faced in growing your business?
Um, I never really had a volume issue. I never really had a referral issue. I think the biggest thing for me was packaging everything that was in my fucking head into something that logically made sense for somebody on paper. As far as a starting point, and then here's the ending point, and this is where I'm gonna interject my expertise into all of those different spots. So yeah, I think that was a big thing for me, was really streamlining all of my services in a way that made sense, that got the person the result they're looking for, and made me the most money on the back end of that. So yeah, it's most likely that was trying to make all of my services make sense in a timeline fashion.
One of the things that I find interesting about people who own brick and mortar businesses is um, taking on overhead. I think
Yeah,
it's a really interesting uh, value judgment that you have to make.
yeah,
So you mentioned you have recharge, you have charge,
yep,
you obviously have space that each one of these businesses operates into. You've invested into the tools that each one of these businesses uses. Um, you have staff, you have a payroll. As you've kind of like, how does that value judgment play into it? Like, I meet a lot of business owners who say, "Oh, I have X number of members. I'm going to add space to my gym." I'm like, "That's a fucking terrible idea. Don't do that," because they're taking on expenses to essentially like work more to pay them off.
right.
Um, tell me about how Charge has grown over the years, because you have a beautiful ecosystem where you can serve people hands on, you can serve people remotely. They can also have access to a recovery center where it doesn't actually involve your expertise or your time. It seems like a beautiful model that you're operating, but it also involves overhead that you've taken on over the years. How has that growth been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little less overhead than you might think. I mean, so um, this office charge itself has like 2,600 square feet. Recharge is maybe closer to 13. Um, and as we've continued to grow, I was, and maybe it's not the most business savvy, but I want things that are going to just help me get people the result, right? Like, is this supported, and just the efficacy of this tool that I'm using, and then is it going to help me actually get people the result that they're coming for me to me for?
Mhm.
Uh, so that's drove a lot of my decisions to continue to invest in different technologies, or different spaces. Um, but yeah, I totally get where you're coming from with that. But I mean, overall, man, my overhead is extremely low compared to what a lot of people might think, and that creates a lot of freedom for me to um, maybe spend a little bit more on a fancy piece of tech or whatever that might be. Yeah, I think that the Cairo overhead is lower than most people might think.
What's been the best investment that you've made, whether in yourself or in your business?
Best investment would have to be probably within myself, and the mastermind is going to be up there itself. I mean, obviously, a lot of the gems and the way that Cav has a really like strong suit of just directing people's focus from here to here, right? Like, okay, hey, this is bullshit, right? This is where you need to be, and he's done a nice job of that for me. But then obviously, just the group that he's put together, like, there's been so many things, little podcasts from other people on your thing that I've listened to, Mike T's podcast, all the little things that you picked up from Danny, and then
Mhm.
you learn from all of that, right? And you just continue to expand. I think that has been probably one of the most transformative things for me, clinically and even just professionally and personally as well, as being able to hear your guys' stories. So yeah, what I mean, that monthly charge is nothing compared to the value that I've gotten from being attached to a group like this. If we're talking hard assets, what's the best investment? Probably my class 4 laser. I have like a Chattanooga class 4
Okay.
laser. Yeah, the ability for that laser, man, to just heal. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm actually willing to like use the word like, hey, this will accelerate your healing. Like, the fucking I had a patient that big long-term marathoner, and long history of stress fractures, of the femur. She just struggled with nutrition and kind of,
Femur.
what's that?
Femur stress fracture.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
dude. And she came to me at her third one, right? So
Are we
by the time
talking like femoral head,
uh,
femoral neck, or are we talking like the actual femur itself?
the actual femur itself, dude.
Jesus Christ, that would be painful.
Oh, it was pretty bad. But yeah, like, usually when they do a stress fracture, right, they get the X-ray. Yep, you got a stress fracture. Okay, hey, we'll check it again in 12, 8 weeks, whatever that is. I hammered her with the laser, maybe twice a week for the first couple weeks, and then just went down to once a week. And again, this was her third, if not fourth, stress fracture by the time she came to me. So she's been through this process before of like the check and recheck of the X-ray. And after we did the laser, she threw that one up, and she's like, the doc was like, "Holy fuck, man! Like, what have you been doing, right? Like, what's going on?" And she said the level of bone growth that happened there, and all the new, all the new collagen and everything that was deposited around that was so different compared to that. So I was a big laser believer after that, and use it all the time now. I had a Liz Frank fracture case come in. He was doing laser twice a week plus PEMF twice a week. Just got an MRI taken this past week, and everything is healed up, and we're ready to get going on some intense rehab. So yeah, that was a freaking $35,000 machine, but it's to be able to be probably one of the only ones in my area anyway that has one. It's a superpower, man.
I almost bought one.
Yeah, yeah, they're
I was
incredible.
like, man, when I was injured, I was like, hey, how much money can I spend on stuff? Who can I reach out to? I reached out to like, does anyone have a dolphin? Does anyone have, I had the PMF at the house because Matt Nickel lent me his.
Nice.
And the the funniest part about that whole process was like I took the like more is better approach. It's like,
Sure.
dude, I was in the PMF 4 hours a day.
Okay. Okay. That's
And people were like, what? I'm like, man, I had it at the house and I was laying in bed. What do you expect me to do?
Yeah. Why not?
I'm
Did
just
you
I'm
find
just
any negative adverse reaction to that much exposure? Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
no. The only
No.
thing that I noticed was my hematocrit was
Yeah.
way elevated.
Okay. Okay. Funny.
So, which is interesting because I was completely immobile.
Sure.
So it's not like I was completely immobile and I was on testosterone replacement. So it wasn't like I was running, high levels of androgens, which is going to increase erythropoietin. I was just like immobile using a PEMF. But I
Yeah.
think, I think it was the BFR.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you were doing some really cool stuff with the BFR too. So that, I think that may probably make a little bit more sense of why the hematocrit was high like
Yeah,
that.
it was just super funny because like you mentioned earlier, it's like let's just run experiments and see what works.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd say my
Absolutely.
experiment worked pretty good.
Dude, you're crushing it right
Dude,
now.
I'm a runner now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, talk to me about that. How's some of that athletic, stuff going? And for a guy that your history, just the stuff that I'm seeing, still look pretty smooth, man.
It's been pretty fun, to be
Yeah,
honest. I'm starting to feel like an athlete again. I'm definitely
yeah,
not as explosive as I used to be.
sure.
Like I mean, we've met. I'm 5'10", but I used to be able to dunk.
Okay.
So
Damn.
to be able to like jump again and do burpees and
Yeah,
I did my first unbroken 20-minute run yesterday.
let's go.
And I was like, oh, like I ran 2.5 miles.
Nice,
Like,
man.
cool. This is pretty cool. But the coolest part for me is that like I don't think about my knees anymore. Like
Yeah,
they literally do not cross my mind. Um, and it comes with trade-offs because I love being a big dude,
sure.
but I know that losing weight will make me faster. But in my head, I'm like, I'll be a little
Yeah,
bit
right.
slower. Who cares? But it's been really fun, man. And I'm still doing a lot of the same stuff that I did as part of my rehab. And I've continued to do even when I was training for bodybuilding with the isometrics and um, a lot of like end range work. And I think people fail to realize that within the training process, there can be elements of it that are rehabilitative or restorative.
Absolutely.
And I think people like you, people like Danny, people like Dylan, they've come to realize that this shit isn't that complicated. Like if you're training, even if you're training for bodybuilding, let's just use that as an example because it's a really easy example. And you're doing a leg press. Yeah, you want to be able to target the quads. You want to be able to achieve a good range of motion, like a deep knee flexion, ankle flexion, hip flexion. Cool. Well, if I want to build in rehab to that, all I have to do is do 2 to 3 second isometrics at the bottom of every rep, and now I'm working on my mobility. How fucking complicated is that?
Dude.
But people get it. They have their ego driven. They want to lift heavier weights. They start shortening their ranges of motion. They start, and so it kind of compounds over time that if you don't access these ranges, you lose them.
Yeah,
Dude.
or they can go the other way where just let me punch this into YouTube or into Instagram and see what kind of fucking mobility drills are the most hot at the time, and leverage and try to use some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, for what I was doing, with the meniscus tear, and
Mhm.
like what you're dealing with too. Getting back to being able to tolerate jujitsu, right? Sit back on your heels, getting to those really deep, knee flexion positions when you're in guard and things like that. That was my last sticking point. And there's nobody else around. There's a little bit of a side tangent, but there's nobody else around that treats me, right? There's so many times I'll make a joke, I do kind of like a sweet adjustment or a stretch, and like, oh fuck, that feels so much better. I'm like, okay, how much can I pay you to do that to me? Like, I need that right now. But so I use isometrics all the time for myself, just to self treat. But yeah, going back to the knee, like I would sit in bed and basically just do kind of like a leg extension against my own pressure, right, at a deeper range. Get to that point where it felt a little sticky, maybe a slight pinch. You kick into that at a 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 effort, and you hold that for a minute plus sometimes, and immediately you start to feel that like that guarding like relax, right, and then it starts to feel like a stretch and I don't have the pain, and you start to regain access to stuff that other mobility drills probably weren't going to get you, right. So
Yep.
I use isometrics for that all the time to help me with the end range stuff, and just to heighten that awareness aspect of what's really firing, what position do I really need to be in to feel this nice biomechanical line kind of stack up and feel really strong. And I think that's a very sorely underutilized aspect of self treatment, is to do low intensity, long duration isometrics in things that are, like you said, so simple, and like ranges of motion that you're sucking at right now. Just try it, and I can almost guarantee that the range of motion is going to open up and that pain will reduce.
I got one more question for you, and I think this is perfect to end it. How
Yeah.
much has your continued focus on your own athletic development led into your ability to treat others and to operate your business?
Yeah, I think a ton. I definitely I'm sure similar to you, hold yourself to a higher standard than most, and know that where you're at is you're most likely leagues above where some of the people that you're helping. So if you can find opportunities for improvement in your own game and your own story, then you can definitely like extrapolate that and kind of maybe even regress some of those more intense training, just variables that you're using to then help more people. So yeah, I'm a guinea pig for myself all the time, and I'm no stranger to injuries myself that come with compensation patterns. So if I'm dealing with some of this stuff and I know what I know, how to keep this stuff, some of these things at bay, then again, it gives me a very nice foundation to be able to talk to people or give them interventions that I know that they're struggling with if they haven't been through the type of stuff that I have. So yeah, it's definitely changed the way that I program for people and be able to just talk to them too, right? And like, hey, I've been through this too. I've dealt with this type of injury. This is the compensation that tends to show up if I don't pay attention.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a very similar issue, so let's work on this together, type of deal. So that builds a lot of rapport.
I think, yeah, it builds rapport, it builds empathy because I'm not going to ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do or that I haven't done before.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
If you had a billboard on the side of the highway that everyone could see when they drove by, what would it say?
Oh, what a great question. Um, It's honestly, it's kind of the value mission or the mission here at Charge is like just take charge of the factors under your control, right? There's so many things that we do not have any control over, and that people come in the room and complain about all of these things that they can't do, or that this is stopping them from going to where they want to go. And then I ask some of those simple questions. Well, what are you doing about this, right? What are these couple levers that we always have control over that you're trying to pull and trying to leverage? And then it's like, then it gets real quiet. Like, I'm not really doing any of that stuff, right? So I think that was a big part of why we called it Charge. Is like I was tired of the lay on the table and fix me, and I was tired of the traditional just healthcare model where there was kind of a lack of transparency of the patient's side of things too. This is a two-way street, right? You're here because of some of the poor choices that you made, or the neglect that you've unfortunately allowed to happen, and let's just have an honest conversation about that, and let's take steps forward to getting you better. So yeah, take charge of factors under your control is probably what I would say.
I love it, man. Dude, I've really appreciated you sharing your time with me. This has been a great conversation. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so website is chargehc.com. You can learn a lot about how we do things over there. Instagram is Dr. Dom Schultz, DC. And yeah, Paul, I mean, it was great. Like you said, we've been kind of kicking this around, trying to get on, but
Yeah.
I've always really respected you. I've always kind of looked up to you from afar, and your ability to be so regimented and disciplined and very detail oriented. I always really appreciated that by you, and then that kind of has
Thanks,
pushed
man.
me from afar, man. So I appreciate your time and your interest in how I'm doing things too.
That, dude, means a lot to me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We'll catch you on the next one.
Sweet.